Yeehaw!
Hey friends, you're watching BrainStormAcres. I'm Henry.
And I'm Irene.
Been a pretty hot one today.
You say that I feel soggy, squishy, sticky, yucky. Yeah, it's been hot. Last time I checked, it was 102. I haven't looked to see if it went up higher than that. I'll probably eventually bother to look at the record on the weather station. But yeah, the word miserable comes to mind.
I thought we'd talk about succession planting today. But first, did I mention I like my hat?
Yeah, you do like your hat.
You know, the thing I like about it is it has a spring-loaded interior, so it fits my fat head.
Yeah. Well, it's actually hard to get hats that we really love. Either of us, to be honest. Because I have a large head for a female too, and you have a large head for a male, so you have a fur right here. There we go. Your beard was sticking up almost up your nose.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. Well, we have a bad case of wrinkled today.
We've had a lot of questions this week about what do we mean by succession planting and how do you do it, why do we do it, when do we do it, and many, many other questions.
Right. There's been a ton of technical questions about gardening, and we're going to get to them all, but we have to start somewhere. So we decided succession planting would be a good place to start.
What's succession planting mean to you?
It depends on who you are and what you are.
I know what it means to me.
Okay, let's say what it means to you.
Especially for short time to maturity crops like radishes or kohlrabi, things like that. It means having a steady supply of those vegetables throughout the year, or as much of the year as we can possibly grow. And that means that all those plants have a natural life, especially things that you harvest by pulling them all out. Mm-hmm. It's not like lettuce where we can pick off a leaf here or there, but when we have to pull the entire thing up, well, once you eat a radish, there's no more radishes. Unless you plant more radishes behind it.
I actually have, let's see, right now, 3 10-gallon buckets with kohlrabis in it. I have one bucket that's got kohlrabis that are bigger than my fist. I've got another one that's got kohlrabis that are about that big.
Size of a golf ball.
Yep. And I've got another batch of kohlrabis that are literally just seeds. They haven't sprouted yet. And the reason I'm doing that is that we like kohlrabis. Now, we don't need 10 pounds of kohlrabis at a time.
No, an awful lot of the dishes that I make with kohlrabi, at least, are fresh with the kohlrabi on the relatively young side because we don't want a lot of fibers in the kohlrabi. So I make it into kohlrabi slaw. I might make some tempura kohlrabi.
We could try. I think we did that last year. I think it
was pretty good.
It depends on your goal personally. For instance, when you're growing tomatoes, if your goal is to put up 100 jars of tomato sauce, then having tomatoes that come off pretty much at the same time, in large quantity, all the time, so you could just totally wreck your kitchen, because you wreck your kitchen when you do that kind of thing.
Whether you're doing 5 pounds or 50 pounds or 500 pounds.
Just as messy. So you might as well just make a mess, get it over with, and get it done with. So if that's your goal, you do something like a determinate tomato that will produce all of its tomatoes in a 2 to 4 in a 2 to 4. Something's making weird noises.
We're in the bedroom where we actually have air conditioning because it's hot.
It is. It's way too hot.
Did we mention it was hot?
Yes, we did. I mentioned it was 102 at least, and maybe if it may have hit higher than that. I just haven't looked at the weather station to check.
Where were we? We were talking about succession planting.
Succession planting. So it depends when you're planting your garden on what your goals are. If your goal is to produce a large volume of tomato sauce or a large volume of green beans or anything like that, you choose your varieties to suit your needs. For instance, I put in a big stack of, well, it's not a big by some people's standards, I put in most of a package of soybeans the other day. Those soybeans should all come off within a 2-week period, if everything goes well. Now there'll be stragglers, but the majority should come off in that 2-week period, and our goal will be to eat as many raw as we can. I mean, it's cook, fresh as we can, but we'll be processing them and freezing them so that we have them for other times. Our goal this year, at least my goal this year, was to actually eat more fresh and do less preserving. And the way we do that is by things like those kohlrabis. My goal personally is to have 1 or 2 kohlrabi slaw dishes per week. That's all. I don't need 10 pounds of kohlrabis. I don't know what I would do with 10 pounds of kohlrabis. Now, kohlrabis, if picked fresh, they normally say will hold for 2 weeks in the refrigerator.
I would say maybe I would hold them maybe a week, just because I prefer the taste when they're newer.
Right, they do get a stronger brassica flavor when they get older. And that may vary. We have like 3 or 4 different varieties too. That may vary slightly. We haven't done a scientific test on that. For us, succession planting is to achieve our personal goals of eating fresh, and also to make the best use of the space that we have. We do not have acreage when it comes to our garden. We have a larger than average size yard garden, a lot of which this year is dedicated to flowers.
They're gorgeous too.
They are gorgeous. This is the best flower garden I think I've ever had, ever.
Now, in terms of succession planting, we planted some of our blue Adirondack potatoes in buckets.
Mm-hmm.
And we've harvested those 4 buckets over about the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 to 3 weeks.
And we have a good quantity of potatoes just from those 4 buckets. We started those in the greenhouse as part of a succession plan. We got those potatoes off early.
Mm-hmm.
They came out here in the end of June, beginning of July. That's great, because now we have 4 or 5 other varieties that are out in the yard.
I think we actually have 6 other varieties, but yeah, a lot.
We're going to have a lot of potatoes.
We're going to have a lot of...
Tomatoes are a good example of something that we don't succession plant as a general rule, at least outside.
Right, because they take too long. Last year, I was able to take the determinate tomatoes, because we had the Alaska Fancy. That was a determinate tomatoes. They were done. So you yanked them out and you put something else. That's succession planting. One of the things that we really are trying to fine tune is, when do I need to plant this in order to never run out? Now, I didn't get my carrots worked out this year, so I actually had to buy some. But there have been years when I've been able to keep my carrots going the whole time. And what I really like to do here is I like to overwinter carrots.
So we just harvested, let's see, rutabaga and blue Adirondack potatoes yesterday. And there's new seeds going into, or new plants going into those pots.
Right.
In the next couple of days.
Well, I did 3 pots this morning. I used one of the Adirondack Blues. Has now got a brassica in it. I don't remember whether it's either kohlrabi or it's pak choi. That's another thing I planted this morning was pak choi. Again, we have 3 buckets of pak choi right now, in slightly different stages. We've got one that I could harvest today if I needed to. I'm planning to harvest some of that when we get to the end of this chicken. Henry did a roast chicken the other night, and at the end of the chicken,
chicken soup.
We get chicken soup, and I will use the some of the pak choi in chicken soup. So I'll thin out the ones that are biggest, and that'll give room for the next group to come in that pot. There's another one that's behind that that's slightly more, and there's another one that's just seeds that I planted today. I harvested a nice big cabbage this morning, the last one from the greenhouse. And I have 1 more pot of cabbage in the garden.
So in terms of succession planting, we started cabbage in the greenhouse. Mm-hmm. We've pulled, I think, 6 or 7 out of the greenhouse before we started moving things out.
At least. I think it was more like 8 or 10.
Yeah, so we used them direct from the greenhouse until it was time to start bringing the pots out. And we brought them out and stacked them along the north side of the house. and they've been growing there ever since.
Right, and I had one more pot left in the greenhouse. It's an old tub, and I was afraid to move it. And that had one cabbage left in it because I harvested the other one last week. It's like grocery shopping in your own yard. That's the best way I'd put it. My goal is to not have to grocery shop. You know, when I'm going to the grocery shopping stores of any kind, whether it's the fancy ones or the regular ones, I'm just trying to pick up basics. So for us, our goal is to produce as we need it. Now, there will be gaps, and one of the things that we have for gaps, for instance, I've got some lettuce right now. I've got another batch that'll be out in probably 3 weeks, 4 weeks. At some point in between there, I may hit a point where I don't have any fresh lettuce. I can do microgreens, or I can do sprouts as a gap filler because it only takes 3 or 4 days to produce those.
Right.
So if you realize you're harvesting the last of the lettuce, or you're going to be harvesting it in the next 48 hours, you could start some microgreens, or you could start some sprouts and have that as your gap filler, you know.
So let's look at succession planting from a really high level. Let's take one pot that we started off in the greenhouse.
Mm-hmm.
We grew a brassica in it. Let's say we grew kohlrabi in it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you've watched some of Irene's shows on the greenhouse processing, she started additional seeds for those kohlrabi in the greenhouse, spaced out about when those first kohlrabi were going to come out of the bucket. So what we do is we look at how long each crop is going to have to stay in that one bucket, and then we plan other plantings of other crops in behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you look at kohlrabi, they come up pretty fast. They grow like crazy if the weather is warm.
Mm-hmm.
We started the first kohlrabi in February, I think.
I had some that were started earlier than that, actually, that we ate during the winter. I mean, we're on generation mumble.
So we get the first crop of kohlrabi coming off that pot. We'll plant something else in. Irene likes to change it up and not plant something from the same family in, so she chooses another food type. Each of those plants has a certain amount of time that it takes from germination to maturity.
Yep.
If you know that, and you know a couple of weeks worth of slop in there,
Right.
you can plan what you need to start next so that you can keep that one pot, that one bucket
Busy.
busy the entire year.
Right. Yeah, I've got pots that are on their 4th or 5th round at this point that have had something in the cabbage family, whether it was a cabbage or a kohlrabi early in the season. Then it went on to be carrots. Then it went on to be potatoes. Then it went, and through a whole different stuff. The 3 pots that went into the greenhouse the other day, empty. One has now got kohlrabi in it. Another one has got, these were potatoes before. So that's the nightshade family. So now they have cabbage family in them.
And we have some others that we planted with sweet potatoes.
Sweet potatoes, and the nice thing about sweet potatoes is sweet potatoes shares almost no diseases with anything else that we could possibly grow. Yeah. It's in a totally different family. It's in the mallow family, same family as okra. So that means that I wouldn't grow sweet potatoes after okra, but we're not growing okra. We grew some last year and we decided it wasn't worth it. Our production here was not worth the space it took. The only thing that was good about it was that when the deer decided to eat something, that was one of the first things they ate.
Well, I think we've about covered succession planting and why we're doing it, how we're doing it.
Right. In a regular garden, if you're producing enough to feed yourself and maybe share with some friends, you have a 4x4 plot, you plan to put something in there. Maybe early in the season it's beets or it's radishes. Then maybe you go to spring peas or something like that. Then behind the spring peas, some of the main season crops like a tomato or a squash. And then as that season is going on past, you put something in that would come in the fall and be more cold tolerant.
In an upcoming show, we'll talk about fall gardens, winter gardens.
Right. Yeah, we're starting to get some serious questions about how do I plan what comes next.
So there are a lot of ways of going about managing your garden for maximum productivity.
Right.
It's all a matter of what you like, what you're willing to grow, how much effort you're willing to put into the garden. There's one more thing. You know, a lot of people have asked us when we're going to monetize our channel, and so far we're split. I don't want to do it right now, at least. I think Irene's kind of in favor of doing it.
Right.
But we have done one thing. At the bottom of all of our show notes, you'll see some Amazon links. What we're doing is trying to put the things that we use, that we talk about in our shows, in that list. Now, we get a small commission from Amazon if you buy through those links, which will help us out.
Doesn't cost you anything, though.
The best thing that you can do to support our channel is continue making comments on every video.
Right.
Don't forget that we're still running the giveaway.
Right.
Again, we'll be drawing another winner the beginning of August for the month of July.
Right.
So the more times you make comments on our videos, the more times you have an opportunity to win our giveaway.
Yeah.
So that's number one.
Right.
Number two, share our shows. I'm sure you have people who would enjoy some of what we do.
Right. I mean, you know, I was chatting with a lady when I went to my doctor's appointment today, and she's like, oh yeah, we're moving up to this town near where we live. And I'm like, oh, hey, if you're into YouTube channels. She's like, really? And I could tell she was writing it down. You know, I'm like, yeah, we do all kinds of gardening and stuff. Oh, great, because, you know, you go, if you live in a unique climate, okay? Say you live in the deep south somewhere, or you live up here, you're dealing with very specific problems. I mean, whereas Dan at home in the sticks might be concerned about his stuff drowning because of extreme rain.
6 inches of rain.
6 inches of rain in one whack, or over the course of a week, it rains 2 inches a day for, you know, ever. We're having exactly the opposite problem. Our bugs are different. Our diseases are different. You know, and if you could find somebody who has a channel that has similar things going on to what you're trying to do, wow, that could be a heck of a lot of fun. I mean, and help. And we answer questions all the time that are very specific for people. Gee, I have this problem. What do you think it is? Or whatever. And, you know, there's times when you're like, I'm going to send you to the University of Georgia's website, and you're just going to have to compare your bug to what's there. I mean, I've still got a bug I haven't been able to identify this year. I know it's a weevil, but I haven't been able to find that blasted thing in any bug book. I haven't given up. I'll still keep looking, but it's not showing up.
Weevils wobble, but I don't want them to make our plants fall down.
I'm a meanie.
Say goodbye, Irene.
So be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And don't forget, if you like any of the products that we're using and you have a question about it, don't hesitate to ask. Because like when I went to get you the information about the buckets that we use, the 10-gallon buckets, I've ordered 5 packs of those. And they come in packs of 5. So, you know, that's a lot of buckets. But for us, it's been awesome. A 10-gallon bucket is big enough to really do something with, but not so big that I can't move it by myself.
So we'll give you a straight up answer, to the extent there is a straight up answer.
Yeah, and I don't know is something I'm never embarrassed to say. I mean, I teach classes all the time, and if somebody says, well, I have this odd question about this, and I'm like, oh, darned if I know, you know? But sometimes I can find out.
Say goodbye.
So until next time.
Bye.